Hello my friends, how are you doing? Thank you very much for downloading the Laser Delight pack. And now I'm going to show you in this free online course how to use it from start to end. So Laser Delight is a pack of styles. So first of all, we need to locate the Styles tab in Affinity Photo. The way you do that is you go to View and then to Studio, and then down here in the list you can see it says Styles. Make sure there's a hook next to it. If there is no hook or check mark next to it, click on Styles once and this will create the check mark. So after you've done this, on the lower right side of your screen you should see the tab Styles. As you can see down here it says Styles, where you also normally find your history, the channels, transform, snapshots, navigator, all this kind of stuff. There you now see Styles. The next thing you need to do is to import the styles into Affinity Photo. So you can see here I have already done that, but of course I'm going to show you how to do that. So with the Styles tab selected, on the right side of it you can see these small 3 lines. Click on that and a menu opens up, and in that menu it says Import Styles Category. You click on this and go to the folder of the Pro Pack that you've downloaded. It's a zip file. You of course need to unpack that or extract it so you can access the folder. And then you have 2 different styles files in here. Laser Delight Full Shapes, Laser Delight Lines. Import both of them. So you click on one of them and then click on Open, and this will import the styles with the same name as you can see here. I have already done that. So you can see here I have Laser Delight Lines, Laser Delight Full Shapes. Okay, so this is how you install the styles. Good. So what are you going to do with that? Well, they are supposed to be used with shapes or outlines in Affinity Photo. What is a shape? Look on the left side where you have all your tools, and down here you have the, well, in this case it's called polygon tool, depending on the kind of shape you choose. So you click and hold your mouse button and this will open up a long menu where you can see rectangle, ellipse, rounded rectangle, triangle, diamond. There's a lot of different shapes in here. You can select either of those. Let's select polygon, for example, and you click and drag to create a polygon. This might look different for you. For example, you might have a fill color, so when you drag it out it might look like this. And the setup of the original polygon that you are drawing doesn't matter at all, because all of this is going to be overwritten by the style. Okay, so let's answer the question, why do we have 2 different style categories to import? You can see here we have Laser Delight Lines and we have Laser Delight Full Shapes. So the lines, as you can see in the preview, they are laser lines around the shape. So when you select the shape, the layer of the shape, in this kind, as you can see here, the layer says polygon because it is a polygon. If you select that layer and click on one of these styles, you can see that this is transformed and the filling is removed, no matter what it was, and you have different kind of laser styles. You can see I created different styles of lines, so some of them have a bigger aura around them, a bigger glow around them, and some are thinner, depending on what you want to do with that, what you want to create with that. Some are also kind of impossible shines, because you can see the glow on the outside here, for example, is pink, while on the inside it's kind of an aquamarine tone. So a usual laser light or a neon light wouldn't give you that kind of effect or that kind of shine, but it looks cool, so I created it anyways. And as you can see, in the biggest version, the Pro Pack, we have 60 different styles for the Laser Delight Lines, and we have for the full shape 50 different styles in here. So you can see here now with these shapes, if I click on them, a white filling is applied to the shape and a big glow around that. And all of those have a big glow around that, because if you have a filled shape, it just looks better if it is like a big glow around it, because for example with the white filling, that's already very bright on its own. Good. Oh, at this point, by the way, I want to point out, as with normal neon light or laser light, the effect works best, of course, on a dark background. So if you have a picture with bright daylight in the back, not gonna look as good, but this is as it is in nature also. Like if you turn on a neon light or any kind of light in your room and it is daylight at that moment, you won't see much of a difference, while at night it makes a lot of difference. So use it on darker pictures. Okay, so let's go through some of the key elements that you should know about this effect, so you can adjust it to your taste and you can adjust it to your needs. That is pretty important. So the styles are all done with layer effects. Where do you find the layer effect? So over here you can see you have your layer tab, and next to it, it says effects here. You can either use these settings if you want to, but I would suggest in this case another method. Stay in your layer area. So this gives you the benefit of always seeing what kind of layer you're working on. And to adjust the effect settings in here, click down here on this little FX symbol at the lower part of your layers tab. So click on that and this will open up a new window, and you can see in here you also have the layer effects, but you now have the benefit to also see what layer you're on. And you have also the added benefit that you have more settings in here than you would have with just the tab of layer effect. So that's very important. And you can see here that everywhere where there is a hook, this is used as an active effect in this style. So if you turn it off, this is reduced as the effect. And you can of course go in here. You can see here I've set up the color, the intensity, the radius, play around with these different levers. It doesn't change the style that we have in our category, just what you see on the screen right now. So feel free to adjust them. And if you don't like them, you can still click on the style again and it will just reset to that style. So play around with these. Then we have outer glow, play around with these settings. You can see some of them are the same. Radius, intensity, color are the same as in the other one. But here, for example, with the blend mode, for outer shadow, because I'm using shadow as a laser light effect, which you can do, which is pretty nice, I use blend mode normal, so you can see the color really well. But then on outer glow, I use screen as the blend mode. But again, you can go in here and play around and see if different kind of blend modes would have an effect that you desire more. So this is highly, highly adaptable. We also have outlines, and this is, it's used a little bit, as you can see with this effect. You can turn it on and off to see what's the difference here. For example, if I have this turned off, we have sharper edges, and if I turn it on, the edges are a bit softer, a bit rounder. But you can play around with that and see what that brings to your effect if you want to. Another thing that is very important to understand here is with all of the styles, I've turned on scale with object. And what that means is if I resize the object, the effect that is applied to it is also scaling with it. So you can see if I make this smaller, also the shine around it, the glow around is getting smaller. And if I scale it up, the shine around it is getting a lot bigger, a lot brighter. So if you don't want to have that because you want to create different effect, then you can turn this off. So let's, for example, scale it to this size and then we turn it off. You can see if now I change the size, the effect will stay the same around my object. It will not scale with the object. So that's pretty important to understand how that works. You can see here now this is a lot thinner. It would be a lot thicker if we had scale with object turned on. I will show you in a second an instance where this actually matters, where this is important to understand. Okay. Another thing I want to show you that's very important to understand. Let's click on an effect let's just reset it to what we had. Is that when we go here to the effects tab, that's the important point, you have a fill opacity. And the fill opacity is addressing the fill color and like everything that is part of the layer. So the layer and the effects, the visibility of the layer and the visibility of the effects are separated. And when you say fill opacity, this means everything that is part of the layer, but not what is part of the effects. Let me show you what the difference is. You can see here I've selected this. If I reduce your fill opacity, the inside of it, everything that's part of the layer is going to be invisible, but the effects still stay around. So this is what that means. And if you want to reduce the fill opacity, which you can do and has some sense, for example, here you can create a gate effect. You have this kind of color inside. Here it is white, but you can turn it to any color you want, or even a gradient. I will show you in a second. So there is use cases where you actually need that. So to differentiate that from the normal opacity that you have with a layer, you click here on Layer tab, and you can see here it says opacity. So if I reduce this, it reduces everything, not just the opacity of the white inside of my object, but also of the effects around that. So this is where the difference comes in. And if you want to only have the glow around or the effects around it, but not the object visible, just do it like that. Reduce the fill opacity to 0, and this is how that's done. Okay, good. So let's look in some creative ways we can use that. You can see already when we use any kind of shape, because laser light is just so cool, it makes the picture instantly more interesting. You can do some really fun things with that, outline people in there, anything you want to do to highlight, even text. For if you create a design for an event, this can be really cool, like for a party, and then you put some text in there to talk about what kind of event it is, stuff like that, the title of the event with a really cool font. All of this can be used to really great effect. Another thing we can do, let's delete this, for example, is, let's use an ellipse. That can be fun. So here we have an ellipse. Let's make it this size, for example. Again, click on this effect. So we have a nice laser light here. And one of the effects that you've seen me before do in live streams is where I create this kind of light tunnel. So I want to show you two different ways you can do that are pretty fun, that give you pretty easy and quick results. So I'm selecting the layer with the ellipse, and then I press Ctrl and J like Joker on my keyboard to create a copy of this layer. And now I'm holding Shift and Control to drag this outward so it keeps the shape, but also scales around the center. And then I'm rotating this a little bit to the side, so we have a little bit of offset with each, how can I say, copy of the layer. So after we have set this up, without touching anything else, press Ctrl and J like Joker as often as you need to. And you can see here, for example, in this case, the effect is growing with every instance of us doing that. So if you would turn off scaling, it would not grow and it would not have this kind of bright shine around it. But you can see that's a pretty cool effect you can create in seconds. And then of course you can still select all the layers if you want to and group them, for example, or move this around, for example, around this person here. So within of seconds, you can create a pretty cool laser light effect for your picture. As you can see, I want to show you another effect that's equally simple, and then we go to something that is a bit more complex. Okay, so let's delete those. And one thing that is super easy and super fun to do is, let's do the same thing. So Ctrl J like Joker. So we have this duplicate, but then with our layer selected up here, click on Enable Transform Origin, and the Transform Origin is where the object rotates around. So I will put this here on the side like this, for example. You can put it wherever you want, and now I'm holding Shift and also Control again, and you can see now the resize is happening around this point. Not around the center, but around this point, because this is the new center. So now we've set it up like this. Let's press Ctrl and J like Joker multiple times, and you can see that this creates a pretty cool tunnel effect. It takes a bit of memory to do this, but as you can see here, you can go more steps to fill up the picture. I'm ending it here to have a smooth recording for my video. But you can see it's a pretty cool effect you can do in seconds just with this kind of laser effect from my pack. So yeah, you can do some really cool stuff. Really enjoy using that pack. Okay, let's go to another way to use that. That is a little bit more complex. In this case, I want to use the outline of this guy here to create a laser effect around that, and then also make a moving effect around that. So the good thing here is the guy is already isolated. If it's not that isolated from the silhouette, you might want to use your lasso tool and do it by hand, or try to use the selection brush. Although I would rather suggest you use the selection tool because you want to have rather precise edges around that. So to give us even a better chance of selection, first of all, I'm going to remove the shoelaces. So let's zoom in here, and we use the InPaint tool. If I can find it, it's hidden behind here. So you can see here, this is the red eye removal tool. I click and hold, and there we have the InPaint brush. So let's brush over this real quick, just to give us an easier target for our effect. So we have removed these shoelaces. We don't really need them for the effect. They would be a bit distracting also. And this is also part of the shoelace. So I think we have a pretty good outline here. Okay, good. I also want to remove this part here. That's a bit too detailed for our taste. So what I want to do is I will sample this color here next to it, select that, make my brush a lot smaller, and just paint this out. So we have a nice like edge here that's not like so fine lined. That would not look good with the laser effect. Okay, cool. So the next thing I'm going to do to bring a bit more contrast to our figure is that we are going to create an adjustment down here. As you can see, these, click here on adjustments and then levels. So I will move this in. As you can see, makes this figure a lot darker, pretty much a solid black right now. I think we should be good like that. Right click on the levels adjustment layer and say merge visible to create a new pixel layer with this inside. And now I can simply use my flood selection tool, because all of this is just one black shape. So this is pretty easy for us. One click. Okay, that didn't quite work as I expected it to do. Let's set the tolerance smaller. Let's try like this. Yeah, that's good. You can see one click with a limited tolerance, so it's really sticking to the color. Let's zoom in. That's okay. Good. One thing I want to do is to make the selection a little bit smoother, so we don't have all these kind of details in there and edges, because like this would interfere with our laser effect. So we go here to select, and then we go to smooth, and then you can play around. Let's zoom in here a little bit, play around with the radius. So let's see, you can see this reduces the smaller details, so this looks pretty good here. Let's click apply, and then I also want to make click on feather to make it a little bit smoother. So let's go to select and feather. Let's go also with 5 pixel. This depends on the resolution of your picture, of course, so don't go with my value. See what value works for you. Okay, let's zoom out again. And the next thing I'm going to do is we can now delete this layer. I will create a new layer, new pixel layer down here, And I will just use my brush to paint everything black inside there, like that. Wait, black color, there we go. Let's paint everything black in here. So we have a black pixel layer, that's the important part here. Let's turn everything off. You can see here I missed a part. Okay, so now we have this figure isolated and completely black. That's good. Good. So turn on our background again, so it looks like this. And now, because this is basically also a shape, an outline, we can also use our effects here. So you can click on that and you can see that you can have some pretty cool effects. Now, I want to give you a fair warning that some of those effects will not work with that because they are using an inner glow. So far, most of them, all of them work, but you can see here, for example, there is one that does not work because we have an inner glow. You can go into your layer effects, as you can see, as we have seen before, layer effects, click here and see who is the offending part that is creating this effect. In this case, is the inner glow. You can either turn it off or you can adjust this, for example, here with the radius, make the radius smaller and give it a different color maybe, so you can really adjust this to your taste so the effect works. But don't be confused if it looks very strange. This is just because of the inner glow that is used with some effects that works great on shapes but not on these detailed shapes. So yeah, there's some of them where it doesn't work. Let's go up here to ones where it works fine. This looks pretty cool. Okay, so what I want to do next is I want to duplicate this layer. So right click, duplicate. So we have a more intense effect. And then I will right click, duplicate this again. And this time I will right click and then say rasterize like this. Unhook the preserve layer, uncheck that so it doesn't preserve the layer, rasterize. Now the effect looks different. So what we are going to do here is to set the blend mode to screen like that. And now it looks like before. Okay, so the next thing we are going to do is to go to filters, blur, and then motion blur. I want to have, you can see here, very nice motion blur going to the side. This usually goes to 100 pixel, but you can go higher, of course. Let's go with 100 pixel first. So let's click. And then after we have clicked, you can see some of that is in front of the guy. We don't want that. So hold shift, click and move it to the left. So it moves in a straight line like that. That's pretty good. And then right click on the layer again, duplicate. And now we are going again, filter and blur, motion blur. So we can move this and make it even stronger. Let's do 200 this time, apply. You can see, again, we have this effect. We can move it over to the side a little bit more like this. So now we have this guy, basically a laser figure, laser outline jumping through the image on the right side, from the right side, I'm sorry. And we can now also use, let's delete this layer adjustment here and create an adjustment for curves that is sitting below our laser lights layers. That's important. So now we can reduce the brightness of the background by just dragging down the curve. So as you can see, I'm doing this just for the background because the curves layer is sitting on top of the background while our laser light layers are higher than that. Okay, good. I hope I covered for you all of the important basics to get started and creative and make the most of this pack. If you have any more questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. And of course, I wish you all of the fun with this pack. Thank you very much for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Bye.